Hi, Kevin. How are you? Well, thank you so much. It's nice to hear from you again. I think that's an awesome idea. I wish you all the best and the best of luck. And yeah, Word of the Witches sounds like a great title and a great idea. I hope it goes well for you. So stay safe, be well, and blessed be. It's nice to hear from you. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
You haven't even read that?
Wait, what are you doing with the book?
So he has the confidence to finish the story.
Hear now the words of the witches.
This is Kevin, and welcome to Words of the Witches, the Charmed podcast that will guide you through the lesser-known published material in the Charmed universe and decide how it fits into the grand narrative of the TV series. Welcome back, spellworders, to Words of the Witches. I hope you enjoyed that message from Holly Marie Combs in the beginning of this episode. It's always so nice to know that people, stars from my favorite show, reach out and give me some wonderful thoughts of light and positivity and support for the podcast. So thank you so much, Holly, for taking the time out of your day to do that. It's so wonderful, and I'm sure that listeners really appreciate that as well. This is going to be the novel retrospective episode. We just finished all of the novels, all 43 books that were published, and now we're going to just take a look back at what we've done so far. It's already been a year and a half since I started this podcast, and we finally finished covering all of the printed novels. When I started this podcast, I was so nervous, and I felt completely out of my element. I was listening to other podcasts, and then the idea to cover the books, the Charmed novels, crossed my mind. The minute that thought entered my brain, I knew I had to do it, mostly because I knew no one else was doing it. I haven't seen anybody doing it. Most people are just covering episode by episode, which I guess is what most people want to see, want to hear, because that's what they know. I'm finding it that most people want to hear people talk about things that they are familiar with and are aware of and have seen a lot of times. So these books was a huge risk, but I was the only one that had the guts to do it, or the one that came up with the idea. So here I am. I felt fans deserved to have the option to learn these stories and to have these made available to them, and that's why I thought it would be something new and exciting for the Charmed fandom. I actually wanted an excuse to reread them anyway, so that's why I started the podcast. I didn't know what I was doing. I never did a podcast before, didn't know how it worked at all. So I was spending a few weeks just researching how this happens, what you have to do, what's available out there. And I know when I started, things were a little bit rough. I had a really crappy microphone. That first episode is still painful for me to listen to. and I just finding my groove, finding my comfort level. I think I was trying to be a little bit more performative in the beginning. And I feel like I've grown so much in just a year and a half. So I know I also first got my braces at that point. So a lot of those earlier episodes too, you can hear me lisping a little bit more. And I still have braces, but they took out the bar that was at the roof of my mouth, which has helped me communicate a lot easier, I'm finding. So yeah, lots of stuff. I also was asked to be on Hanging with the Halliwells that same week that I announced this one. So I went from 0 to 2 podcasts real quick, but it was definitely an experience, and I've definitely learned a lot. And I just felt that with my Charmed knowledge and reverence and my level of obsession that I had, I thought it would be a great asset to a podcast of this type. So that's another reason that just kind of kept calling my name to keep doing it, even through the uncertainty. Before I started this, as a podcast listener, I would listen to a lot of podcasts. It was really easy for me to shout inaccuracies and elaborate on points that the hosts were making in my head, because I was like, it gave me a certain pride doing that. Like, I know something that they don't know. And, as an observer and a listener, it's very easy to call it out because I was given time to process what I'm hearing versus what I know. Even after going back to episodes I've recorded and listening to it, I start to think of new things that I missed, or things that I could elaborate on, or make these connections that I did not make while I was recording. So that's frustrating, because it's like I want to put that in there now. But I've learned that being on the other side and hosting a podcast is much more involved than it seems. Even though preparation is involved, as I'm recording, we are also reacting and chatting in real time. So I find it more common that I'd say things that are inaccurate or unclear or fail to mention something, because we are literally on the spot and just reacting naturally. For me, I found there's a certain energy in you as you podcast that demands you stay on task and timely, and that it's like very urgent. So I've discovered a new sympathy for podcast hosts, especially the ones who are deemed as experts, because there's a lot of pressure to live up to that name. And I hope that you as listeners can be forgiving if and when I do say something that isn't quite right or I miss an important detail, because there's just a lot going around in my brains. Most times I will correct myself, but part of the fun is to be in a community that will have conversations and remind you of the things that you may be missing. Someone may have an interpretation I may have not thought of. So yeah, knowledge and reference is definitely better than toxic gatekeeping. And I definitely do not want to be a gatekeeper. I want everyone to feel comfortable with me. And so, yeah. But here we are. This is episode 44. It's going to be the last part of the season 1 novel collection of podcasts that I'm doing. So for this episode, I will provide some overall information about the creation and production of the novels themselves, then spend some time revisiting each book we've covered, remind you of its title, author, release date, shout out the guest who joined me, and then share a very brief description of its plot. I will also touch on the bonus episodes we've had thus far. And then another thing that I did that I thought was very fun was I chose a song that I feel ties into the narrative of each novel somehow. A lot of them I used as the promotions for the episodes when they were released, but I will reveal those songs as we go. So, and I also have taken the liberty of creating a Spotify playlist of all these songs entitled Words of the Witches Soundtrack. So if you go on Spotify, you can search that, find it, listen to all the songs whenever you like. It's getting close to Halloween time, so it might be a nice Halloween playlist for you, maybe, possibly, I don't know. But let's get into it, yeah! Now, I broke the books into 4 sections of 10 to 12 books or so each. If you were following along in what I've done so far, we kind of broke it up that way. That's how I broke up the best baddies. After each section, I will remind you who won the best baddie title before revealing the ending votes for our most recent section and final best baddie winner at the end of the show, the current best baddies. The Charmander novels are a series of books that accompany the TV series but are not canonical, as they follow no strict continuity, even though their basic outline of each book is approved by the series producers. Writers of the novels had to obtain approval from Paramount Pictures or CBS Consumer Products to ensure that they followed the canon established for the television series. According to Paul Ruditis, authors of Charmander novels and comics must maintain the rules for playing in that universe, and the studio still has to approve the direction we take as writers. Following these regulations, authors are given creative license but strictly couldn't go and rewrite history, killing off established characters or suddenly creating romantic pairings that we'd never see on the show. Between 1999 and 2008, 41 novels were published by Simon & Schuster and were set roughly during the same period as the events of the television series. A majority of the novels are original stories revolving around the Charmed Ones and their allies. 10 novels are set between the show's first and third season and feature the Charmed Ones Prue, Piper, and Phoebe as the most powerful witches of all time. 31 novels are set after Prue's death and all hell breaks loose, starting with the novelization of the season 4 premiere Charmed Again, and include Piper and Phoebe's half-sister Paige. 2 works are anthologies of short stories. Various authors have written works in the series. So let's begin. The first book is The Power of Three by Eliza Willard. It was published November 1st, 1999, and my guest was James Mansfield, lovely friend of mine, drag queen extraordinaire. And then this is a novelization of Something Wicked This Way Comes. The plot is Prue, Piper, and Phoebe Halliwell discover that they are the Charmed Ones, the most powerful witches of all time. After Phoebe reads an incantation from a book in the attic, Prue gains the power of telekinesis, Piper can stop time, and Phoebe can see the future. While adjusting to their new magical destiny, the sisters must defend themselves against a warlock who wants to kill them and steal their powers. The song I chose for that episode was How Soon Is Now by Love Spit Love, because that's the Charmed theme song, and it just fits for a novelization of the first episode. That's what I had to do. I remember for that episode, it was rough. My microphone sucks. Book 2 was Kiss of Darkness by Brandon Alexander, published February 1st, 2000. My guest that week was Brittany Rossetti, who has now gone on to do many things, including her Instagram Charmed Collector 1329 and her TikTok. So I'm very proud of her doing so many great things, making that manner amazing. Amazing talent, amazing artist. So I'm glad to have her on the podcast and I hope to have her back. This book was set on New Year's Eve. Prue is cursed after receiving a kiss from a stranger. She feels an uncontrollable urge to kiss other men, with the curse making her feel weaker with each kiss. If she continues, she will eventually die. Piper and Phoebe work together to reverse the curse and save Prue's life. The song I chose for that one is Kiss Me in the Dark by Randy Rogers Band. Love that Kiss Me in the Dark. I just thought it was perfect. Book 3 was The Crimson Spell by F. Goldsborough, published March 28th, 2000. My guest that week was Kyle Beasley, who I met on the Instagram. I should reconnect with him. It's been a while since we talked, but I loved him on the podcast as well. This book was about a group of warlocks who are hunting the Halliwell sisters by infiltrating their lives under the guise of friendship. They slowly drain the Charmed One's powers while the sisters are unaware of their true intentions. Phoebe grows attracted to a reporter posing as a member of the Warlocks' Coven. The song I chose for this one is called The Spell by Camelot with a K. And it's a very kind of rocky, mystical, like witchy song. I love it a lot. Book 4 was Whispers from the Past by Rosalind Noonan. It was published June 1st, 2000. And my guest that week was Brian Ash, another local fun guy. This takes place in season 2, and it's about a demon who kidnaps Phoebe and pulls her several centuries into the past. While there, Phoebe meets the daughter of her ancestor Melinda Warren. In the present, Prue and Piper are devastated at their sister's disappearance. They believe she may have died. They begin to turn evil due to a demon's interference in the past. And the song I chose for that one is Journey to the Past from the musical Anastasia, or the animated movie Anastasia. But a lovely song about, facing your history and your family and your past. I love it. Book 5 is Voodoo Moon by Wendy Corsi Staub, published August 1st, 2000. My guest that week was Neil Andrews from the UK. And in this, the Halliwell sisters go to New Orleans for a vacation. However, during their first night in the city, Phoebe begins to have dreams of violent rituals taking place under a full moon. When Phoebe's new friend disappears on the night of the full moon, the Charmed Ones find themselves drawn into a demonic plot involving voodoo. The song I chose for this book is called Voodoo by Godsmack. Yeah. I'm not the one who's so far away. It's fun. Book 6 is Haunted by Desire by Cameron Doki, published October 1st, 2000. My guest that week was Jessica Wright, another friend that I've met over the years. And in the book, Phoebe enrolls in an additional college course in order to broaden her intellectual potential and becomes attracted to Brett, one of her new classmates. However, she is soon confronted by his jealous ex-girlfriend, Wendy. When Phoebe works with Brett on a group assignment, she receives threatening notes and believes something supernatural is behind the messages. So this is about ghosts and stuff. Ghost story, murder story from the past. The song I chose for this book was Haunted by Evanescence. Book 7 is The Gypsy Enchantment by Carla Jablonski, published April 2nd, 2001. Guest that week was A.J. Jacoby, another fun friend. The plot for this book: for her next photo assignment, Prue is tasked to help with the development of an article on the Carnival Cavalcade. While Prue hates the circus, Piper and Phoebe are excited to see the attractions and Ivan, the attractive gypsy animal trainer. However, Phoebe has a premonition that Ivan will strangle Piper. So circusy and cameras and photos and stuff. So this is season 2. The song I chose for this one was Fun House by Pink. I did have a thought about this book. I remember in that book, Olga and Satya went to the astral plane and then summoned Prue and Ivan to the astral plane, where Olga and Satya were both killed there. So was it just their spirit that was there that got killed? Did killing their spirit kill their bodies? I have questions about that plot point, but that's something I wanted to bring up in the podcast, but didn't remember till it came up again. So I was just wondering how that works, and I had to throw it out there. So there you go. Book 8 is The Legacy of Merlin by Eloise Flood, published April 3rd, 2001. My guest that week was Ben Midler. He changed his name to the Barry Poppins, I believe, on Instagram now. He's host of Once Upon a Scream and Once Upon a Queen podcasts from the UK as well. In that book, Prue travels to Hay-on-Wye to acquire medieval books for a collector, and Piper and Phoebe join her on a trip. Piper researches how to create love charms with flowers, and Phoebe has a premonition of a mysterious man, Niall, holding an infant while standing on a heath. The sisters then discover that Niall is a part of a druid ceremony. The song I chose for that one is Higitus Figitus from Sword in the Stone because, yeah, I just had to. Book 9 is Soul of the Bride by Elizabeth Leonard, published May 22nd, 2001. My guest that week was Dimitris Garfalakis from Greece. And in that book, Prue competes in a competition to take an original picture for 415 magazine. She uses an antique camera provided by Phoebe's latest boyfriend to take the pictures. The camera causes all of her models to collapse, and the sisters must travel into the Greek underworld to rescue them. song I chose for that one was The Gospel Truth 2 from Hercules, 1997. So another Disney song back to back. I just love my Disney. What can I say? Book 10 was Beware What You Wish by Diana G. Gallagher, published July 31st, 2001. My guest that week was Paul from Power of X-Men, and this was Prue's final book, Tears. This is our 10th book. In this book, disturbed by the increasing number of tragic incidents covered in the news, Phoebe wishes she could use her power to prevent any negative event from occurring in the future. When Phoebe begins to have more premonitions than she can physically handle, Prue and Piper work together to help her. And the song I chose for this was Careful What You Wish For by Eminem. And it was at this time where I had my first Best Baddie ranking votes. And at the end of these 10 books, I had 3 winners that moved on because I was trying to do 3, which was ridiculously crazy. But in the end of this, Gabriel Trousseau was the grand winner from Voodoo Moon, Jeremy Burns from The Power of 3, and Athulok from Beware What You Wish won. But Gabriel Trousseau was the big winner of that one. On Instagram, I've actually asked people to tell me what their favorite books were from this section. And my favorite book, before I say anybody else's, is The Gypsy Enchantment, I think. I liked The Gypsy Enchantment and The Crimson Spell. I think those were my 2 favorite books from this section, but, lots of good ones. Some of your favorites were Radical Retro Podcast said The Gypsy Enchantment as well. I've had 3 Kiss of Darknesses. Lots of people like Kiss of Darkness. Well, go Prue. Why not? That's awesome. Whispers from the Past is on here. I've had someone say Haunted by Desire. Soul of the Bride and Beware What You Wish are all listed as people's favorite books for this section. Oh, and Legacy of Merlin or Voodoo Moon. So, yeah, I love that. Book 11 was the novelization of Charmed Again by Elizabeth Leonard. Published October 2nd, 2001. My guest that week brought James Mansfield back on, which was great to have him back again, with a much clearer conversation. Piper and Phoebe mourn the death of their sister Prue and are left vulnerable to demonic attack after the disruption of the Power of 3. They discover that they have a secret half-sister, Paige Matthews, and attempt to connect with her before the source of all evil turns her evil. I actually had 2 songs for this one. I have Bell, Book, and Candle by Eddie Reader, which was used in the show for Prue's funeral, but I also put Calling All Angels by Jane Seabury, which was used in Deja Vu all over again for Andy's funeral. I just love them both. I feel like Calling All Angels makes sense for them, calling a lost witch spell, and this is what happens. And then Bell, Book, and Candle. Book 12 was Spirit of the Wolf by Diana G. Gallagher, published May 1st, 2002. My guest that week was Mr. Robert, and in that book, a resort in the Sierra Nevada is cursed by recurrences of supernatural omens. The owners are thought to be defiling the sacred tribal lands of a nearly extinct Native American group. Phoebe and Paige work with a shaman to confront the demon behind these occurrences. And the song I chose for that one is Feed the Wolf by Breaking Benjamin. Another rocky kind of song. Book 13 is Garden of Evil by Emma Harrison, published July 1st, 2002. My guest that week was Bryce Lee from Tennessee. In that, Phoebe discovers that Paige's latest boyfriend is really the demon Vandalus. Vandalus traps Paige in his garden and seduces her in order to break his curse and access his full powers. Piper and Phoebe work with Cole Turner to save her. This was the very Beauty and the Beast book that I thought it very reminded me of Beauty and the Beast, but that's just the Disney guy in me. I can't help it. The song I chose for this book was Roses Are Red by Aqua. Anybody who knows me knows I love me some Aqua, and Roses Are Red is just perfect for this book. You get a little bit of Paige's voice in there, but you also get a little bit of Vandalus's voice in there in that song, so it makes sense. The next book is Date with Death, number 14 by Elizabeth Leonard. And in that episode, Brittany Rossetti came back, Charmed Collector 1329. It was published September 1st, 2002. While Piper and Leo discuss the possibility of children and Phoebe and Cole celebrate their engagement, Paige feels pressure to find that perfect partner. When she signs up for an online dating service, Piper and Phoebe discover she is being placed in a catatonic trance while on the dates. The song I chose for that book was Email My Heart by Britney Spears. Book 15 was Dark Vengeance by Diana G. Gallagher, published November 1st, 2002. This is still my favorite book, I believe. My guest that week was Kat Sicard, and in this book, the Hallowell sisters are feeling overwhelmed by recent changes in their lives. Phoebe begins to lose her short-term memory, Piper loses control of her emotions, and Paige always feels exhausted. With their powers diminishing, they are vulnerable to demonic threats. The song I chose for this one was Warrior by Disturbed. Yes. Book 16 was Shadow of the Sphinx by Carla Jablonski, published January 1st, 2003. My guest that week was Sean Porritt, co-host with me on Hanging with the Hallowells and Now Solving for X. We are such good friends these days. You will not hear the last of him, so keep that in mind. While experimenting with her magic, Paige turns herself into a cat and cannot change herself back into her human form. Unaware of the transformation, her sisters take her to an animal shelter. Paige becomes the familiar of a cult and is sent back to ancient Egypt. The song I chose for this book is obvious. It's Everybody Wants to Be a Cat from the Aristocats, another Disney classic. Ta-da! Book 17 was Something Wiccan This Way Comes by Emma Harrison, published March 1st, 2003. I was joined by Thomas Visser of the Netherlands. In this book, witches from a coven mysteriously disappear while after attending a Wiccan convention in Las Vegas. With the help of Daryl Morris, the Hallowell sisters investigate the disappearances and to discover they may be connected to a group of Egyptian demigods. The song I chose for this book was Dark Secret from the Craft soundtrack. The artist is Matthew Sweet. Book 18 is Mist and Stone by Diana G. Gallagher, published May 1st, 2003. My guest was Axel Ada, and in this book, Paige has difficulty consoling a young child who has gone through several caretakers and is angry at authority. Phoebe has a premonition involving the boy, but it is completely shrouded by fog. Leo reveals that the mist in the vision is because Todd's fate is not being set in stone, and the sisters attempt to reverse his destiny. The song I chose for this was The Creationist by Carolee, an Estonian singer. This song is a little bit more of a stretch, but it is commenting about creation and what your mind can do and what you can create when you put your mind to something. Book 19 is Mirror Image by Jeff Marriott, published July 1st, 2003. My guest was Gerardo Mosqueda from Mexico. Wonderful. He's the owner of the Warren Witches Antiques. He makes a lot of really great composites and posters and things like that. And he also was responsible for helping to create my logo and all of my print materials. So I'm so grateful for him. And I'm so glad he got to be on the podcast. For this book, Phoebe has a premonition that Paige is an imposter who wants to disband the Power of Three. Piper and Phoebe disagree over the best way to handle the situation, and Paige notices and feels more isolated from them. When she decides to keep her new friendship with a young male witch, the sisters begin to distrust one another. The song I chose for this episode is Confrontation from the Jekyll and Hyde musical. Book 20 was Between Worlds by Bobby J.G. Weiss and Jacqueline Wilson, published September 1st, 2003. My guest was a wonderful bisexual friend, Lewis Oakley, and he's on Bisexual Brunch in the UK. The sisters discover that buildings around the city are melting due to a plot to destroy the divide between the worlds of the living and the dead. They track the occurrences to an untrained witch named Claire Catherine C.K. Piers, who is in possession of a book that was used to curse an evil witch 500 years ago. This is the Halloween book, and the song I chose for this one was In the Shadows by the Rasmus. At the end of these 10 books, our best BADDIE winner was Shax from Charmed Again. Now, my favorite book from this section is definitely Dark Vengeance. I'm not shy about telling people how much I love that book, and it's probably my favorite of all the books. So Dark Vengeance is definitely mine. I guess a close second would either be Mist and Stone or Mirror Image, because I liked those ones quite a bit as well. Let's see what you guys said. A couple people want Mirror Image. A couple people like Garden of Evil. Charmed Again is on there a few times as well. And then we had Shadow of the Sphinx and Between Worlds mentioned. So yeah, those were some of your favorites. Nice. Then we had our first anthology book, Seasons of the Witch, Volume 1 by Laura J. Burns and Emma Harrison. It was published October 1st, 2003. We have 3 short stories. Samhain, where during Halloween, Phoebe tries to communicate with her ancestors, but is interrupted when she is tasked to reunite a pair of star-crossed lovers. Yule, where during the winter solstice, Paige goes to a party at a nightclub and must stop a demon's plot to cause permanent midnight. And Imbolc. During Imbolc, Piper tries to plan for her future with Leo and a growing family, but she becomes concerned when Paige's powers start to get out of control. Piper begins to wonder if a hybrid witch/white letter baby can have a healthy life. Joining me that week was one of my oldest friends, Stephen Eifler, who I've known since 6th grade and was with me during the peak of my Charmed obsession while the show was on the air. The song I chose for that book was Season of the Witch by Donovan. Book 21 was Truth and Consequences by Cameron Doki. Jessica Wright returned to join me for that one, and it was published November 1st, 2003. In that, Cole becomes angry with Phoebe after discovering that she has gone on a date with another man. As the couple fights over their relationship, they find themselves caught in a demon scheme to destroy the power of three. I have chosen as a song I Hate Everything About You by 3 Days Grace. I also used that when I used to make Charmed music videos. I had that as a Phoebe and Cole song. It just seems fitting for their relationship. Book 22 is Luck Be a Lady by Scott Cienson, published January 6th, 2004. I was joined by Chris Riley of X Reads podcast. And in that, it's while trying to protect the sisters from a demon's plot, Cole accidentally sends everyone back in time to World War II-era Hollywood. Paige poses as an upcoming actress to uncover clues on demonic businesses. Piper tries to find the past version of Leo, and Phoebe attempts to convince Cole to send them back to their proper time. This was also Cole's last book, sadly. The song I have chosen for that one was Sentimental Journey by Doris Day, because that was a very prominent song within the book. And so, a very cool old school Hollywood ballad. Book 23 is Inherit the Witch by Laura J. Burns, published March 2nd, 2004. I was joined by a Charmed fan, Joanna Mung, and in that, the sisters are approached by a young witch named Juliana O'Farrell to help her daughter Lily find her powers. In Juliana's clan, they bind their children's powers until they are mature enough to control them. However, when Lily cannot access her magic, the sisters are tasked to find out who has stolen her powers. And the song I've chosen for that one was I Am a Witch by Twin Temple, a doo-wop satanic band that my friend Sean introduced me to. They're so good. Check them out. Oh my gosh. Book 24 is A Tale of Two Pipers by Emma Harrison, published May 4th, 2004. Brittany Rossetti returns for a third time, and in that book, after Piper becomes increasingly stressed after balancing her personal and professional lives, she splits into two bodies. When Leo is kidnapped by a group of Darklighters, Phoebe and Piper are dismayed to discover that one of the Pipers is apathetic about his capture, and both Pipers are losing control over their powers. So, yeah, fun. The song I've chosen for this was Double Trouble by Elvis Presley. Book 25 was The Brewing Storm, Paul Ruditis' first novel in the series, but he's going to be a staple. This was published July 6th, 2004. My guest was Mark Schmidt, another wonderful Charmed. When the city is struck by a series of freak weather patterns, the sisters discover there are omens indicating mass destruction. In order to stop the natural disasters, they must help a young witch who has trouble controlling his pyrokinesis. Tyler, to be exact. The song I've chosen for this one was The Elements by Toby Mac, because there's lots of elemental energy in this book. Then we have Book 26, Survival of the Fittest by Jeff Marriott, published August 31st, 2004. I was joined by Casey Kimple, my friend from Chicago. This was getting into aliens, so it was about a large number of people are being reported missing in the city and mysteriously reappear with no memories regarding their absences. A woman sends a letter to Phoebe's advice column writing that her sister was taken and that she has become obsessed with an exercise video since her return. The sisters investigate the workout program and its creator to see if there is something supernatural involved. The song I've chosen for this book was Physical by Olivia Newton-John. So sad that she passed recently too. Oh, we love Olivia Newton-John. And it scares me because she had cancer just like Shannon Doherty has, and I'm just so nervous. Book 27 is Pied Piper by Debbie Vigue, published November 2nd, 2004. I was joined by Caitlin Shaper. In this, after Piper and Leo start to discuss having more children, they notice that infants have been appearing on their front porch and coming into their house. While Piper attempts to find answers about the babies, Phoebe discovers that there have been several disappearances in the city, and they all were candidates to conduct a youth symphony. So this is our musical episode. And yeah, the song I've chosen for this one, Magic Dance by David Bowie in Labyrinth, because it's all about the baby. Forget about the baby. No, perfect. If you know the movie, you know it. Book 28 was Mystic Knoll by Diana G. Gallagher, published February 7th, 2005. I had Shayna Macy join me from Charmed A Spellcast podcast. In this book, the sisters plan to take a vacation in Salem and the beaches of Massachusetts, but find themselves in an unknown location following a series of traveling incidents. While staying at a bed and breakfast run by a witch practitioner and her daughter, they discover there have been supernatural events occurring in the small town. Ooh. I have chosen as the song Hexenhammer by Burning Witches, a female metal witch group. Loved it. They're fun. Book 29, Changeling Places by Nicole Ostow, published March 22nd, 2005. I was joined by Bentham from the Philippines. And in this book, when Piper starts leaving her son Wyatt at a daycare center, she notices that he is beginning to act strangely, and other babies in the facility are exhibiting the same behavior. On further investigation, the sisters discover that someone has been switching babies all across the city, and they attempt to discover the culprit. For this one, I have chosen Changes by David Bowie. Another David Bowie one. But it fits. So, yeah. And after that book, that was our 30th episode. So we had another Best Baddie section, and Shax won that again. So Shax won twice in a row. Crazy. For this section, it was actually kind of hard for me to pick a favorite. I really liked Inherit the Witch. I really enjoyed Truth and Consequences. Pied Piper I liked a lot. I'm gonna go with Truth and Consequences, even though it's a Phoebe and Cole book, and I'm not like the hugest Phoebe and Cole fan. I thought it was written very well, and I liked it a lot, so I'll go with that one. I also included The War on Witches in this section, which will be the one I cover next. I should have mentioned that first, but let's see what you guys said about your favorites in this section. So I have 3X's Charm says Pied Piper. We have Dominic Tyler say Inherit the Witch. Andrea Ronk says The Brewing Storm. Another Brewing Storm over here by Cunning Celt. Queen's Curse by Ian Shea, of course, because he was on that episode. Love it. Survival of the Fittest is listed. Another Pied Piper. Luck Be a Lady. Brewing Storm. Yeah. Tale of Two Pipers and Brewing Storm by Benj Bites. Raphael says As Puck Would Have It. I know that one is very important to him because he loves Puck. So, yeah, cool. And I've had a lot of votes for The War on Witches. So many people love The War on Witches, which, of course, it's a anthology of all kinds of history that we would love in the Charmedverse. So, yeah, I get it. Speaking of, then we had our second anthology book of short stories. I said 8 short stories. This was The War on Witches. I'm not going to list all the authors. There are so many authors, but it had Old Friend, where Paige reunites with an old friend named Emmeline Graydon, but their time is cut short when Emmeline reads a spell from the Book of Shadows and disappears. While trying to find Paige's friend, the sisters are pulled back in time to the 1920s when the manor was a speakeasy. Then there was The Crucible, when Phoebe hires a student named Marissa Hargrave to be her intern, but she has a premonition of her new assistant being attacked by a mob. While trying to decipher the meaning of her vision, Phoebe discovers that Marissa is hated by her peers and is the target of a demon powered by hate. Then there was Patty's Awakening. Set in 1966, a 16-year-old Patty Halliwell questions if she would like to live a life with or without magic. After Patty falls in love with a classmate and decides to give up her powers, Penny Halliwell discovers that the boy's stepmother is a demon plotting to steal her magic. Something old, something new. The sisters are sent back in time to colonial America. They meet Prudence Warren, the daughter of their ancestor Melinda. They discover that she wants to give up her powers and question how they can convince her to keep her magic and protect the future. Preconceived. After the sisters vanquish a warlock in the present, his ancestor is resurrected in the past. The sisters travel back in time to protect their mother and grandmother from the ancestors, but Penny is uncertain if the sisters are telling the truth. Witch Trap, where Phoebe goes into the country to investigate the gold rush in order to write an article, and Piper and Paige join her project. After discovering a brooch, they are transported back in time where witches are hunted and burned at the stake. Old Family Recipe, where while looking for her grandmother's recipe for apple pie, Piper gets caught up in a curse set out in one of Phoebe's past lives. Mistaking it for her grandmother's recipe, she bakes the pies and discovers that they curse everyone who eats them. And the final story, Family History. While on vacation, the sisters encounter an ancient demon who begins to change their family history. They must call on their entire lineage in order to prevent the demon from destroying their pasts. That was all published May 31st, 2005. Nisha joined me for that one. Yeah, the song I chose for that one is We Are Family by Sister Sledge. All right, last grouping of the books. This is Book 30, The Queen's Curse by Emma Harrison. My guest for that episode was Ian Shea. It was published July 26, 2005. In this, Paige believes that she has met the perfect man and is excited when he proposes to her. She discovers that he is a prince of a magical kingdom and is already engaged to another woman. He tells her that he must marry another magical being by his 25th birthday, or else his kingdom will be destroyed. The song I have for that one is Killer Queen by Queen, because The queen in there wasn't so nice. Spoiler. Book 31 is Picture Perfect by Cameron Doki. My guest was Gabriel Lopez from Brazil. It was published September 27th, 2005. And in that book, Phoebe reprints love letters from the tumultuous and tragic relationship between architect William Lancaster and divorcee Isabella Marshall as part of her column. When a mural is restored and unveiled to the public, Isabella's daughter warns that an evil has been released. After multiple murders occur in the city, the sisters attempt to find out the truth behind the mural. Ooh, this was a scary book for me. The song I have chosen for this book is Painter Song by Norah Jones. I think it's kind of a haunting song, which was like kind of a haunting story. Maybe a little sweeter than the brutal murders that were happening in this book, but still. Book 32 is Demon Doppelgangers by Greg Elliott. My guest was Bob Mwigai from Kenya, and this was published November 22nd, 2005. In this book, Paige gets a new job as a museum guide for an ancient Greek exhibit. A mysterious stone egg is added to the display, and a demon hatches from it and takes on the appearance of her co-worker, Chase. The sisters attempt to stop the demon while also protecting Chase. The song I have chosen for this book is Hit the Floor by Linkin Park. I just feel like that song kind of comes from the perspective of the ravaging man beast and how he's like, there's too many of him and, all these dead bodies are going to happen. I love it. Book 33 is Hurricane Hex by Diana G. Gallagher, published February 7th, 2006. My guest was Jared Volden, who is really doing great things with making his own Book of Shadows pages. And in this book, when Phoebe is invited to a seminar in Orlando, the sisters go on a vacation to Florida only to discover that a hurricane has changed course to head right towards them. Paige becomes concerned for her old college friend Sharon Grant after she starts practicing folk magic with her neighbor. This is the only novel that does not have a bad guy in it, so there's no baddies to be added to the list. For this book, I've chosen the song Rock You Like a Hurricane by the Scorpions, obviously. Book 34 is As Puck Would Have It by Paul Ruditis, published April 11th, 2006. My guest was Jay Wong, who actually makes edits on the fandom for the Charmed books. In this book, each of the sisters have odd encounters with service workers on the same day. Piper with the housekeeper, Phoebe with the computer technician, and Paige with a hiking guide. They discover that the trickster Puck is spreading chaos. He tasks them to find an innocent who requires their protection in a crowded circus before time runs out. And that innocent was an elephant. It's all about animals. So for this book, I have chosen the song The Animal Song by Savage Garden. Book 35 is Sweet Talkin' Demon by Laura J. Burns, published May 9th, 2006. I had Kareem on as the guest, Kareem, and in that book, Phoebe believes that she has found true love after meeting Daniel, but Paige has doubts after seeing a demon in his living room. Meanwhile, Leo is caught up with his work as a white lighter and begins to forget about his family, and Paige starts to lose her powers. And the song I've chosen for this one is called Sweet Talker by Jessie J. Sweet talker, sweet talker. Book 36 was Light of the World by Scott C. Ensign, published August 1st, 2006. My guest that week was Rachel from A Real Bodice Ripper. And in that, Phoebe and Piper's childhood friend Lissa announces that she is getting married in an old lighthouse on the coast and wants them to be her bridesmaids. On arriving at the ceremony, the sisters hear rumors of an evil spirit of a lighthouse keeper and notice Lissa's fiancé has become increasingly obsessed with her family heirloom, a diamond known as the Light of the World. The song I've chosen for that one is We Belong to the Sea, another song by Aqua, because I told you I love my Aqua. Book 37 is House of Shards by Nicole Astow, published October 24th, 2006. Joining me that week was Roderick, and in that book the sisters believe that the manor is being transformed into an evil lair and attempt to find the cause. The song I've chosen for that one was Haunted House by McKenna Grace. Rafael Carcamo wrote in about The Little Mermaid being Prue's favorite fairy tale, and he was thinking about how maybe they were referring to the original story by Hans Christian Andersen, not the Disney movie, which is a sad story because she chooses to die and become sea foam instead of killing the love of her life, the prince, because he married another. She chose love above all else. I wonder if that is why they said that was her favorite story. What makes me like the idea even more is the fact that the original story was written as a love letter style story, that because he couldn't be with the man he fell in love with. Okay, yeah, so he's saying that Hans Christian Andersen, and he did have male lovers, and he was sad because his male lover chose to be with a woman instead of him, and so that's why he wrote The Little Mermaid. And yeah, so maybe Prue's favorite fairy tale is the Hans Christian Andersen story, not the Disney version that I was thinking of. Nice. Book 38 was Phoebe Who by Emma Harrison, published December 26, 2006. My guest was a returning friend of mine, Kat Zacard, And in this book, Aura, Delilah, and Tara convince Phoebe that she's not herself, and they make her lose her memory, and they try to attack witches and steal their charms. The song I used was Who I Am by Wynn Starks. Book 39 is High Spirits by Scott C. Ensign, published April 24th, 2007. My guest was Jonathan Arona. The sisters attend a party organized by Paige's ex-boyfriend Kevin, only to be greeted by the ghost Robert Maxwell, who has died under mysterious circumstances in 1926. As people start disappearing from the party and the doors in the venue become sealed, they must unearth the truth behind Robert's death. And the song I chose for this one was Hooray for Hollywood by Francis Langford and Johnny Scat Davis. In that episode, I talked about how come Paige can kiss a ghost, but Piper can't kiss Mark. But they did establish that Maxwell could corporealize. Mark was a very new ghost, while Maxwell has been, haunting this thing for years. And he technically he wasn't even really dead, which is weird because he was just kind of sucked out. So maybe he was something completely different, and that's why he could corporealize. Book 40 is Leo Rising by Paul Ruditis, published August 28th, 2007. My guest that week was Bernard from Ireland, and in this, the sisters are captured by the demonic scientist Dr. Ganivic, who wants to steal the power of 3. Leo, who has recently turned mortal, calls upon future versions of his sons, Chris and Wyatt, to help rescue them. I have chosen the song The Boys Are Back in Town by Thin Lizzy. The boys are back in town. Jay, who was a guest on the pod, pointed out that Nisha's spell in there, that was with the broom and sweeping evil out, very much reminded him of All Hallows Eve when she was teaching Phoebe and them how to sweep, which, is obvious. It's an obvious thing to see, and I did not mention that, so thanks for pointing that out. And the final book, Trickery Treat by Diana G. Gallagher, published January 1st, 2008. I was joined by Ryan Hunter of the Radical Retro Rewind podcast and Brunch with the Hallowells. In this, during a Halloween party, Paige casts a spell as a way to honor the dead. However, inadvertently opens a portal for leprechauns and spirits to crash the celebrations, and the sisters must stop one ghost before he kills a ghost hunter. The song I picked for this book was Halloween by Susie and the Banshees. And I did have some things that I noticed from listening back to that episode. First of all, Wyatt's pants were enchanted, to whoever wears them gets possessed to walk back to Wyatt. It very much reminded me of Phoebe in the glass slippers and how they were kind of forcing her to walk in Happily Ever After. And then it got me thinking about what Billy is doing. I mean, at this point, they were still kind of friendly with her. Maybe she's doing more college stuff. Maybe she's doing her own thing. But it's weird that they didn't even mention her being, in their lives. And, another hard choice for me to make. Because I enjoyed quite a few books in this section. Picture Perfect I really liked a lot. Demon Doppelgangers was good. Light of the World and High Spirits. Leo Rising. Okay. These are all very good for me. I'm going to choose Light of the World, just because it has my water iconography in there. It has the ghost in there, which I love. It was funny. It was crazy. We got to act out some scenes. So I'll go with Light of the World, even though it was hard for me for this one. Some of your favorite books in this section. Andrea Ronk says House of Shards. Tom CG93 says Phoebe Who. I know. Fox Moon 93 says House of Shards. Jonathan Jones 38 says Leo Rising. And then 3X Charmed says Trickery Treat. So, yeah. So now it's time for the final Best Baddie rankings for this set of books.
Seems almost anticlimactic after all this time, doesn't it?
It was the only way to get their powers.
And now I want yours.
Darkest forces, let it be. Hear my plea, bring life to me.
You can't run! Frozen! In fear!
Best Baddie! First, I will reveal my top 10 baddies. So my number 1 was the Ravaging Man-Beast from Demon Doppelgangers. Yes, he was so powerful, and he really had the upper hand for most of the book. I really enjoyed that. Number 2 is Dr. Ganivic from Leo Rising. I thought he had a pretty cool plan, and he actually depowered the sisters pretty effectively, and he was a lunatic and a madman and hilarious and a really great villain. Number 3, I have Shax. He's still pretty high up there, but, he's the only one left from the actual show. Number 4, I put Bestiary Demon from As Puck Would Have It. That's the one that could, drain the life forces of animals and get their abilities. Crazy. Number 5 is the Lighthouse Keeper from Light of the World. The Vengeful Spirit. Number 6 is Gil Townsend from Picture Perfect. Just a mere mortal man, but a subservient serial killer. Crazy. 7 is my Aura, Delilah, and Tara, the 3 girls that took Phoebe. My number 8 is Zarhoth from High Spirits, the illusion channeling demon. Number 9 is Bobo from House of Shards, the bug toy that Wyatt conjured up. And my number 10, the final spot on my top 10 list, is Sheldon Winters from Trick or Treat, the bully ghost. Cool. There's others on here, but they did not make my top 10. Let's see how they fare with you. According to your votes on Instagram, the number 10th spot is Bobo with 12 votes. Number 9 was Zarhoth with 13 votes. Number 8 is Indar with 14 votes. And that surprised me because I didn't think you did much. But there you go. People voted for Indar. Number 7 is Sheldon Winters from Trick or Treat with 15 votes. Number 6 is the Lighthouse Keeper from Light of the World with 16 votes. And now we're into our top 5. So number 5 spot was William Lancaster from Picture Perfect with 18 votes. Number 4, my number 1 is Ravaging Man Beast from Demon Doppelgangers with 19 votes. Number 3 is Queen Ramona from The Queen's Curse with 21 votes. She got pretty high. Go Queen Ramona. That's because people love a campy badass chick. Go her. Number 2 is Gil Townsend from Picture Perfect with 22 votes. See, he's scary. It makes sense why he would get high to me. He wasn't as high as some other ones, but I can see why he would get that high because I get it. And number 1, obviously, is Shax. Everyone is obsessed with Shax, and he got a whopping 56 votes, more than double the Gil Townsend. So if I disqualified Shax, Gil Townsend would win, but Shax, of course, beat out everybody again. He's just that kind of guy. Blowing past everybody. Now I'm just going to quickly run through the bonus episodes we've done over this first season of the podcast. The bonus episodes I started were never planned at the beginning, but I still had this nagging drive to discuss general trauma topics in depth. And, I wanted to make them accessible. I didn't want to hide them under a fee or a Patreon. I just wanted to do these and talk about these things and make them available to people. I get a lot of admiration and love for these bonus episodes, so I'm going to keep doing them. I have so much fun doing them as well when I can fit them in and squeeze them in. So we had 8 episodes that were bonuses during this first season of the podcast. The first bonus episode was about the Book of Shadows. My guest was Marsha Mallow, and for the song I am choosing The Book of Shadows by Coven 13. It's a Book of Shadows song told from a Wiccan pagan perspective, and it's really nice. And it's a male witch singing, so love it. Bonus 2 was the Hallow Witchy special, the Halloween special, where we talked about all of the scariest and Halloweeniest things in Charmed. I had Phoenix Arcana Lightwood from Witch Bitch Review Podcast join me for that one. And the song I chose for that is Scary, Scary, Sexy Lady from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Rachel Bloom. Fun stuff. Bonus 3 I called P3 VIP. I had Janine join me for that one to talk about P3 and the music of P3 and all the bands that played there. The song I chose for that was Just My Imagination by the Cranberries, because that was a very iconic number that played in season 2. So yeah, love that. Bonus 4 was my interview with Michael Billy Smith, the guy who played Balthazar in Shax. I'm proud to call him kind of a friend at this point. So, and we had a really lovely interview with him. So the song I'm choosing for that one is Monster by Skillet. Bonus 5 was my Hallowell Manor Moment episode where I interviewed the owner of the manor in LA, as well as Hubert Langdorfer, who built a very accurate replica of the manor. And it gave me my into that group of people who know the manor and know what happens there. So I'm happy to be in that fold, so I can keep you guys informed too, if I'm allowed to. The song I chose for that episode was Our House in the Middle of Our Street. That's by Madness. Bonus 6, Set Stories, where I talked to Nicholas Wendell, who got to visit the actual set during season 7 when he was 13 years old, and he told stories of all about his time on set and how he got to that place. Another amazing person who I've met who've become such a good friend, and he actually makes films and directs movies in LA, and he's doing really cool stuff too. For that song, I'm choosing Pinch Me by the Bare Naked Ladies, another iconic song that was performed at P3. Bonus 7 is Iconography, Charmed Iconography. I had my friend Galen join me. They call me Mr. G. And we talked about all the other iconic symbolism in the show that was not the manor and not the Book of Shadows, but everything else, like the grandfather clock and the spirit board and, the triquetra, things like that. So fun stuff. And the song I chose for that one was Iconic by Simple Plan. And then my final bonus episode, bonus 8, kind of was thrown at me. It was, I call it Navigating the Maze with Michael Mays, the actor who played a celerity demon on season 7 of Charmed and had quite a cool career. He texted me and said he's ready to do a podcast, so I had to kind of whip something up and get us together to talk. So we did that. Because he was on Power Rangers in Space and Lost Galaxy as the Psycho Black Ranger, I chose the Power Rangers in Space theme song for that one. I have received a few thoughts from people about the podcast thus far. Mr. Mock Turtle says, I love how passionate you can be with something you love without taking it too seriously. I think what he means is I'm not an asshole about things. Like, it's something I love, it's something I have a knowledge about, but I'm not going to correct every little mistake someone makes, and I just want it to be very casual. So I'm glad that comes through. And he says he loves when you and your guest reenacted some scenes. So that was the Light of the World episode with Rachel when we got to played roles and we acted out some of the dialogue from the book. That was a lot of fun. Bob and We Guy, my guest for Demon Doppelgangers, says that he likes getting to see me shirtless. That was because when we recorded, while I was on the camera, I had my shirt off. It was a very hot day. It was summertime, and I was roasting hot in my room, so of course I was shirtless. I'm glad he liked the view. That's all I gotta say. Thank you. D. Avalone 228 says that my podcast actually inspired him to get all the books. So that's pretty awesome. I've been hearing that a lot. So I'm glad that it's bringing that resurgence back. That's amazing. And Sarok's Kingdom on Instagram has a comment about the bonus episode about the iconography one, saying that there are different chandeliers. We were talking about the chandelier and how important it was. And he's saying, yeah, there's different chandeliers. There's one in the living room, there's one in the main hall, one in the dining room, there's one in the attic. And yeah, obviously, the chandelier is like a universal chandelier for all of them. Because, yeah, there's definitely multiple chandeliers in the house, in the home, and multiple ones have had the magic beaming. But, I just meant as a whole, the chandelier is what we kind of call it. And I unfortunately have to announce another charmed death. This was a person who died the day before my Trick or Treat episode came out, so he wasn't added to the list. It was announced that morning. So we have to just let everybody know that Joe Itada, who played an inspector in Look Who's Barking, died at 85, August 25th, 2022. He also worked with Shannon Doherty in Beverly Hills 90210. So another charmed loss there. And I suppose that will just about do it. Wow. Well, thank you for a wonderful first season, Spellworders. This is still quite a small podcast, but thanks to you, we already have reached over 10,000 plays, which, considering the amount of episodes we have and how niche of a podcast we are, it is pretty impressive. So thank you. At this time, we will be taking a break. There should be nothing new coming out for the next month. So it's definitely a great time to binge and catch up or tell your friends. And then we will return with a vengeance just in time for Charm's anniversary in October, where we begin the Charmed comics. Be sure to rate and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's really easy. Just click the star if you want to do it quick. Subscribe so that you're notified when new episodes are released. Don't forget to check out the Words of the Witches soundtrack playlist on Spotify as well, so you can listen to all those songs that I mentioned in this episode. And follow the podcast on all of the usual places. Words of the Witches on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Words of Witches if you're on Twitter. And if that's still not enough, you can find me at Solving for X, covering the X-Men animated series, and Hanging with the Halliwells, where we covered seasons 6 through 8 of Charmed. Until next time, Spellworders, be well. Your destiny still awaits.